Have you ever stopped to wonder what really separates people who reach their potential from those who, well, who don't? You might think it's talent or IQ, but what if it's something way more powerful? What if it's your mindset? It's basically the lens you see everything through, and we're about to dig into how changing that lens can change pretty much everything else.
All right, let's try a quick thought experiment. Just picture this. You're having one of those days. You get a C+ in a class you actually care about. Then you find a parking ticket slapped on your windshield. And to top it all off, your best friend just kind of blows you off. So what's the first thing that goes through your head? What does all this say about you?
You know, your answer to that question, it's not just about being in a bad mood. It actually points to a really deep belief you hold about who you are. And according to the incredible research by psychologist Carol Dweck, it all boils down to one of two fundamental mindsets. So on one hand, you've got what's called the fixed mindset. This is the idea that your intelligence, your personality, your talents, they're basically just set in stone. You've got a certain amount, and that's it. And what this does is it creates this constant, nagging pressure to prove yourself over and over, because you always have to show that you have enough of the right stuff.
But then there's the other side of the coin, the growth mindset. This is the belief that your basic abilities can be developed, that you can cultivate them through your own effort and hard work. Now, this doesn't mean we can all become the next Einstein, but it does mean that your true potential is totally unknown. It's something that can only unfold with years of passion, focus, and good old-fashioned training.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. When you put these two mindsets side by side, you see they create two totally different worlds. In the fixed mindset world, the main goal is always to look smart. Effort feels kind of threatening, right? Because if you have to try hard, it must mean you're not a natural. But in the growth mindset world, the goal is just to learn. Effort isn't a weakness. It's the path that actually makes you smarter and stronger.
And that brings us to this huge idea in our culture, the myth of the natural. I mean, we are obsessed with stories about people who are just born with this effortless talent. But what if that's not really how it works? It's pretty wild when you actually look back at history. Some of the most brilliant minds we've ever known, people like Charles Darwin and Leo Tolstoy, they were seen as totally ordinary kids. Their genius wasn't something that was just obvious from the start. It was something that cultivated over a lifetime.
And this isn't just true for intellectuals. Take the world of sports, where we talk about natural athletes all the time. Ben Hogan, an absolute legend in golf, was the complete opposite of a natural. As a kid, he was apparently totally uncoordinated. His skill wasn't a gift, it was forged. And of course, you can't have this conversation without talking about Michael Jordan, the guy who many consider the greatest of all time. He was famously cut from his high school basketball team, but he didn't let that label of not good enough define him. He used it as rocket fuel. So what all of these stories are telling us is that expertise isn't a birthright. As the expert Robert Sternberg puts it, the key factor is purposeful engagement. And what does that really mean? It means deep, focused effort over a long period of time. It's not about the cards you're dealt, it's about how you play the hand. This leads us to probably the biggest, most important difference between these two mindsets, how they deal with failure. For one, it's a disaster. For the other, it's just information.
See, in a fixed mindset, any kind of setback feels like a final verdict on your ability. It's not just, I failed that test. It instantly becomes, I am a failure. The action gets twisted into a permanent brand on your identity. I mean, think about one of the most famous mistakes in the history of sports. Jim Marshall, an NFL player for the Vikings, scoops up a fumble, a fantastic play, and starts running 66 yards in the complete wrong direction. He scores for the other team. And this all happened on national TV. You can't imagine how humiliating that must have been. Now, he could have let that one moment crush him. He could have just become wrong way Marshall forever, but he didn't. He faced it, he dealt with it, and most importantly, he learned from it. He went on to have a legendary career because he refused to let that failure become his entire story. Okay, so all of this sounds really powerful, but let's get practical. How do you actually do this? How do you move from a fixed to a growth mindset? Well, it's a journey, for sure, but it all starts with a few really conscious steps. So step one is just to start listening. Start noticing that voice in your head, the one that's always judging you, whispering things like, you can't do this, or don't even try, you'll just embarrass yourself. Step two is the game changer. Recognize that just because you hear that voice doesn't mean you have to listen to it. You have a choice. Step three,
You actually talk back. You answer that voice with a growth mindset response, like, this is hard, and that's exactly how I'm going to learn. And finally, step 4, the most critical part, take the action. Go and do the very thing you were afraid to try. So here are a few things you can literally start doing today. First, add one simple 3-letter word to your vocabulary. Yet. It's not, I can't do this, it's I can't do this yet. Next, shift your focus away from just the final grade or the win and onto the process. Celebrate the effort. And finally, when somebody gives you constructive feedback, try to see it as a gift, as valuable information that's there to help you grow. Ultimately, that's what this all comes down to. It's a choice. One path leads to a life of looking back and wondering what could have been. The other path leads to a life where you know you fully showed up. You gave your all for the things you cared about. So the choice of mindset isn't just about today. It's the choice that will write the entire story of your life. Which story do you want to tell?